got a crazy-ass true story to tell. It could be funny or thrilling or creepy as hell. And when you speak, surely none will make a sound. And the world's going breathless when your true story comes around.
Welcome back to Your Best True Story, everybody. This is episode 13, and we have got 4 new calls to talk about. FCAT, how are you feeling today?
I'm good. Ready, excited for a new batch of stories.
Nice. Did you have any additional thoughts after the interview last episode with Joanna, the medium?
Oh, of course. I've got a whole nother hour worth of questions for her.
Yeah. I think that was a good interview. It was it was pretty interesting. So she's definitely an interesting lady. If you haven't checked it out, that's the last episode. Freddie and I had an interview with the story winner of April. And just to refresh people's minds, if you're tuning in for this for the first time, kind of the way the show works is we encourage anybody and everybody to call in their stories to us on pretty much any topic, and we will play it on the air. We'll discuss it, and then we let you guys, the audience, vote for whichever story you think is kind of the best, in which case whoever wins will win $250, but then also be invited on the show to be interviewed one-on-one to talk more about whatever their story's about, their experiences, stuff like that. And Joanna is a medium and quantum channeler, and that was a very interesting interview. And hopefully, I think we've got some good calls to pick from this month, including the 4 calls that we've got coming up in this episode, which Freddie deals with topics such as a massive mushroom trip, the Smiley face killer's murder theory, a woman's encounter with a snake, and somebody growing up in a war zone. So we've got a full range of experiences.
Plethora. This runs the spectrum.
Yep. So it should be good. And we're about to get into those, but I was just going to mention a couple of interesting things I noticed in current events in the news the past couple of weeks. I was going to see if you had heard about, King Charles. He got his official portrait done, demonic.
Yeah. I did see that portrait, where if you take it and flip it over, mirror it, put them together. I forget if it was 2 or 4 of them, but there's like Baphomet basically.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's
they're getting so creative. Everybody's so creative.
It's just days. Like if you're getting one official portrait and you're a head of state, why would you even lean towards like a red, dark
blood
imagery?
It just looks like he's taking a blood bath.
Yeah.
It's
interesting choices. Yeah. Then we've had other stuff going on, like I think since the last time that we talked, the awful Diddy video confirming he beats women awfully. Savagely has come out. Oh, it's horrific.
Oh.
He's like kicking a woman, his girlfriend, in the head.
I missed that part of Twitter or X.
Yep. Then the Iranian president also died in a helicopter crash. A couple of Americans went to Congo, tried to overthrow the government. That's an interesting story. I expect to hear more about.
They just got caught up in an overthrow?
No, I guess they expressly, a couple of rich dudes from America flew to Congo with the idea of taking it over.
Jim, this is something that could end up happening to us if we did get into
that's
tequila again.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying, is a kind of respect there. Most of us just think, like, I just woke up today and thought, like, oh, damn it, we got to get another podcast episode out. These guys were sitting around in Utah and thought, fuck it, let's take over Congo. They failed miserably.
Sadly,
they died. They died in the attempt.
Sadly, I can probably think back, years ago where we might be sitting at the bar throwing them some back, and where that might be sound like a refreshingly cool idea.
Yeah. And these guys were apparently very wealthy.
Uh-huh.
So I'm afraid, like, if I was very wealthy, that would definitely be on my radar.
Yeah,
where it'd be in the back of my mind, like, is there a country I could topple today?
That's a lot of legwork, though, because how long can your buzz last for that? Like,
yeah,
it seems like you might have to have a
bunch
bunch of research to even find out who's in charge over there.
One of the guys was from Congo originally.
Oh.
And then moved to the U.S. and became very wealthy. So I'm pretty sure it was his idea at the bar when they were sitting around.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, guys, I know Congo very well.
Somebody had to have done the homework of like how this mechanism would even work.
Yeah. But unfortunately, and I believe they tried to live stream it on Facebook as they were storming.
You're just missing out on content if you don't.
Yeah.
It's just silly.
But I think they both got gunned down and died. So, so Chuck, tequila wins one again.
Yeah. Doesn't it win them all?
Yeah, pretty much.
Undefeated so far.
So, well, we'll go ahead and get into the calls. This first call, I absolutely love, Freddie. It is from a guy named Tristan in Arizona. And this is a call about his massive first mushroom trip. And I gotta say, it reassures me we're reaching the correct audience now.
Oh, okay.
That Tristan was kind enough to call in and tell us this story. So I'm calling the story The Mushroom Monk. And here's Tristan from Arizona.
Hi, my name's Tristan. I'm from Arizona, but the story took place in a little mining town called Elko. And to get to the chase, I was in a little bit of a rough spot in terms of a living situation. I was a bit stressed, and I had never done any substances, nor have I planned to. Didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do nothing. Worst thing I'd done was mix Pop Rocks and soda. So, while bartending up there in this little mining town, I met a fella who sold mushrooms. I don't know anything about mushrooms. Still don't really. But he sold me this incredibly potent strain, about a quarter ounce of these. And at first I was just going to plan to do a little bit of them. But next thing I know, it's Friday morning. I got my monk robes on, sturdy cotton monk robes. They're very comfortable if you've never gotten the chance to wear them. If you're stuck with one garment for the rest of your days, that's it. But anyways, I drive up the local canyon. It's the Forest Canyon. And I hike a ways away. I just want to isolate myself as much as possible. And I go, and I find a spot in the middle, towards the top of the left slope of the mountain. And I say, fuck it, mama ain't raised no bitch. And I ate them all, the entire quarter ounce. And that's when things started to get real. 20 minutes is all it took for them fuckers to start kicking. I mean, it was potent. First 40 minutes was a blast. I was just seeing kind of strange colors around my vision. My auditory hallucinations were going insane. I mean, I'd flick a tree branch and it'd go like a cartoon for 15 seconds. It was amazing. I got a bit hungry, so I got into my jerky, and I couldn't get the bag open, so I ate the bag, plastic and all. And then I got a bit thirsty, and I had my little Arizona tea can, and couldn't get the top off, so I bit into the side of the can like it was a Capri Sun and drank it like that. Problem with that is it's an aluminum can, and now I've got aluminum shards in my teeth, and they're cutting my gums and lips, and I can't really feel it. And I look down, and blood just starts pouring out of my mouth, because that's what happens when you cut your gums. And I think that's when things started to go wrong. And this is when the mushrooms decided, strap in, bitch. Because the only way I could describe the potency of this is it's an atom bomb. Just an atom bomb in your head. Not a big explosion, but like a not so subtle wave of woomph, woomph, woomph. And it kept getting more and more intense. It wasn't an audible sound, but it was the pressure like from a sound. Oh boy. And it got more and more intense. You know what a cramp feels like in your arm? That's pretty painful. Now imagine every single muscle in your body cramping, expanding, contracting. And talk about physical pain. Man. Oh, man. I was seeing white. I was in so much pain from that, I couldn't even scream. It felt like my bones were going to break. My guts were going to burst. That was just the beginning. And that wore off after a while. And after I was able to feel and breathe again, I started to scream. Scream like a caveman. Scream at the top of my lungs. Screaming on this mountain. And, oh boy, it didn't get any better. It just kept getting more and more intense. It was impossible to describe the intensity. It was like a bottomless pit of agony. My mind's getting stripped away. And after a long time screaming, a long time, my voice gives out and the mushrooms start to wear off a bit. Just a bit. My equilibrium comes back and I'm able to stand. And in my mind, everything I know, everything I am is gone. The only thing that's left is fear and paranoia. And Mushroom Me decided, I've made too much noise. There's mountain lions up here. I gotta go. There's mountain lions. I gotta go. So I pick up my shit and I start to run down the mountain. It's a fucking mountain. It's at a slope, heavy slope. So I take 3 steps and I just start ass over tea kettle falling. I'm upside down. I hit a tree. I'm bouncing off of rocks and bushes and shit. And I'm going fast. I'm getting all cut up. I'm lucky I was wearing those monk robes because they probably helped save me from a lot of bodily injury. Because by the time I get to the bottom of the mountain, the snow pack really breaks my fall. And my robes are torn to shreds. It gets a little fuzzy. I don't quite remember getting out of the snow, but I'm walking down the road, I recall, and I have a shovel. I didn't bring the shovel, and the shovel's like brand new, like you just picked it up from the shop. I have no idea where I got it. The only thing I could think is that I ran through somebody's camp and nabbed a shovel. But I'm wielding the shovel like it's the spear of God, and I'm snarling at beast, real and imagined. I look like a thing from the woods. I'm covered in blood. My robes are torn to shit. I've got 3 pine cones in my hair, covered in fucking dirt. And I am just in survival mode, just full monkey at this point. But the monkey has a pair of fucking car keys in his pocket. And eventually I walk far enough down the trail to hit the road and get to my car. And the only thing in my instinct is going, me home now, me home. And I get in my car and I start to drive down this mountain road that's still covered in halfway in snow and ice. And I don't know how I made it home. I don't know how. I should have died. I should have died twice over. If I broke a bone on the mountain, I was in the middle of nowhere. Nobody would have found me. That would have been it. But I made it down the mountain. And I made it home somehow. It wasn't very far, but I was in no condition to drive. I was still high as a kite and gone. It must have just been muscle memory. And I get home, and my Mormon neighbors I have to my left, they're great people, but I don't really know them. Like, we never really officially met. Thank fuck they weren't home. Because when I got home, they have chickens, and Mushroom Me, when I got out of the car, the chickens were talking shit. So I went out there and I had a shouting contest with those chickens. And for a while, after I felt I won the argument, I stopped yelling at the chickens. And these same neighbors, they have a goat. Me and the goat were kind of buddies. You know, I'd feed it and pet it occasionally. I don't know these people. And I'm laying in their backyard lawn with this goat on my lap, just petting it like it's a dog, talking to it. And then at this point, physically and mentally, I'm exhausted and I'm just shot. So I go to my room and I pass out in the chair. You know those werewolf movies where the protagonist wakes up and there's blood everywhere and he doesn't remember what happened? Yeah, I know exactly what that feels like, because a few hours later, I wake up. I didn't realize I was still a little bit high, but I woke up and I don't remember fucking anything. And there is blood all over the door and the wall and the chair, and I'm covered in cuts and scrapes and bruises. Oh, That was not a cool way to wake up, let me tell you. I was fucking panicking. Man, and I go and I start cleaning myself up. I look out in the front bin because I'm just trying to find my keys, my phone, my wallet, because it's all gone. And I find a bloody shovel in the bin with rags wrapped around it. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Did I kill somebody? It was the shovel I'd found, and the rags were from my robe, and it was my blood. So, whew, we're good. And then the mushrooms really start to wear off at that point, and all the memory just comes flooding back. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. I got to get my phone, my wallet. I left everything on the mountain. So I spend the rest of the day hiking up the mountain, finding my stuff. And I found my stuff. I found the crash site on where I just ate shit down the mountain. And I went up there, and it's late afternoon at this point. I realized that I had been tripping for 13 hours roughly. And me sitting there eating the chocolate bars and the beef jerky, you want to talk about catharsis? Boy, that was the best lunch I've ever had. Anyways, I love the show. I've done a bunch of other weird things, like next few days I've hosted midget wrestling. I've been bitten by a cobra. I don't know, I've just done a few different things, but I love what you guys are doing, and hope you can use this. Oh, and be careful with mushrooms. They are no joke.
Freddie, if that call doesn't convince you to do mushrooms, nothing will.
Man, wow. Oh, I have so many questions.
So, and just to put this into perspective for the audience, he mentioned eating a 1/4 ounce, and I checked the math on that. Mm-hmm. Basically, because I've done a few mushroom trips. Mm-hmm. The largest mushroom trip I've ever done, in as far as in grams, the one where I might have gotten possessed by an ancient snake spirit.
Yes.
That was only 3 grams.
Aha.
He did the equivalent of 7 grams for his very first trip. So it's basically, in my mind and my barometer, it's basically did more than double what you need to get possessed by an ancient snake.
That is a good ratio. I like his idea of going into the woods, although after I thought about it, I'm like, wait, maybe that isn't the right place. I feel like maybe a padded room would be a good place to start.
Whenever I've done larger doses, then that's where I lock myself in my apartment and put a sign on the door that says, Jim, you did X grams of mushrooms at such and such a time. So if my assumption is if I start to go too far into the spirit world, then if I try to go out of my apartment, I'm going to see that sign, and it's at least going to ground me as to what's going on.
If I was going to attempt what he just did or explained to us, I would have to tie myself to something.
Yeah, I would never do that amount without somebody watching.
Yeah. You need somebody to tether you to if this is the real world or this world, what your body's doing in this dimension while you're off playing around. The pain thing, that's the first time I've heard of that. In a version. I
actually got a lot of people actually get very nauseous from mushrooms and vomit and everything, kind of like ayahuasca. I've never actually had that for some reason. My body just seems to like it. I even like the taste of mushrooms, which a lot of people don't. But I actually, on the 3 grams trip I started to get weird kind of muscle spasms and cramps. So I don't know what that is, if that's part of the process, or maybe it's just electrolyte imbalance or something once you take enough mushrooms.
If he's the poster boy for 7 grams, we gotta talk about this pain, this full body intense everlasting pain thing.
That was the least of my interesting facts about the story. I just love the fact that he's on the side of a mountain, has the balls to take 7 grams, and is in monk robes. Can we address the monk robe thing? Why do you have monk robes?
Well, because
it's
that makes
awesome that he
sense.
does. Yeah.
That makes the most sense. That I don't think I would want anything else than monk robe if I was going to go attempt
But did
what
he
he's
get
doing.
the monk robes in order to someday do mushrooms out in the woods? Or did he just, it sounded like he happened to have the monk robes for other.
I think you could just chalk that up to synchronicity. You things kind of put themselves in place for you to get where you need to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, however he ended up with a monk robe, like maybe it was some other sort of drunken, trip, and then woke up in the morning, no
Wearing
car
a
keys,
monk robe.
but wearing a monk robe.
Yeah.
That's only just feathering the bed for this experience to come down the pipe.
The funniest part of that entire story to me was when he somehow stole a shovel from someone out in the middle of the woods. For some reason, I just think that's hilarious. That more than likely he just ran a crazy screaming guy that's all cut up and bloody, has just eaten a plastic bag and chomped into an aluminum can, is running through your campsite and snatches your shovel and keeps on running.
Yeah, somewhere out here is the a different perspective of this.
Oh yeah,
where he's the witness to the shovel thievery or snatching. Where exactly, you get to see.
And then I've got to assume the Mormon neighbors he's never met, he will never meet at this point, because they were probably in the living room, just like Doug and Sherry were peering out their window, going, "My God, why is that guy arguing with our chickens?
Why is our goat on his lap?"
He's a bloody. He's a bloody monk with pine cones in his hair. Mushrooms are amazing. The ability, a couple of our friends that have played around with mushrooms before as well. Dennis, I am hoping, figures out how to call his story in of when he answered the door with for DoorDash.
Don't ruin that story.
Well, all right.
Don't ruin.
I don't know if we'll ever figure out how to
give him a couple of months to figure out the button.
Yeah, how to leave a voicemail.
Yeah, and see if you get that story. Recorded.
Well, I'll mention one of Jared's stories because I'm sure he's not going to call it in. He got really high on mushrooms and somehow ended up at the neighbor's house, his girlfriend's neighbor's house. So he didn't know them at all, and he, for some reason. And knowing Jared, you could see how he just went and knocked on their door, was compelled to knock on their door and then they answer the door. And he said he couldn't really remember everything except they were all crying and hugging, and none of them spoke English. And he doesn't speak Spanish, and he hung out in their living room for about an hour, just crying and hugging, and them all showing him family pictures and so it's just
that makes sense.
Yeah,
he must have been crying when knocking on the door and showing up, and
maybe
they just attached their empathy to him. And joined in or something.
Who the hell knows? The interesting thing is, if the history of mushrooms also, if you don't know much about Terrence and Dennis McKenna, who were two really respected botanists out of, I think, maybe Berkeley in the 60s. Dennis McKenna is still alive. Terrence McKenna has passed away a long time ago, but he's Terrence McKenna is kind of a cult figure for mushrooms and psychedelics, and you can pull up his talks on YouTube and everything. But they were kind of the ones that were credited with bringing mushrooms to the modern US in the 60s. And the whole way that occurred is they went down to, I think it was Peru, in order to find ayahuasca, because they were doctorate students in botany and had a real big interest in hallucinogenics, and they had read stuff about ayahuasca. So they go down there to find a shaman that can give them ayahuasca so they can study it. They couldn't find anybody that would give them ayahuasca. But what they did do is, you were just talking about, serendipity, and so they a cabin they're staying in, apparently in the middle of nowhere on the outskirts of the Amazon jungle. They wake up one morning thinking they'd almost given up, thinking, we're never going to find ayahuasca or anything interesting. We just need to head back to the States. They wake up and walk out to, after it had rained that night, a massive field of mushrooms. Psychedelic mushrooms had sprung up.
Oh.
And so they, being botanists, they look at it and identify, and they're like, wait, these might have, are also reputed to have some psychedelic characteristics. So they start taking those. They end up staying in the jungle, and it's fascinating. I've read a book about it called True Hallucinations, but Dennis McKenna has been on Rogan before and will explain it. Like, they basically tripped balls on mushrooms, kind of the same level that Tristan did, every day for over a month. They just stayed in a state of, and by the end of it, and Dennis McKenna talks about it now and has said things like, he goes, I'm not sure what was real and what actually happened versus, he's like basically saying I was probably legally insane, but really weird shit was happening with reality as well. And I couldn't, like, there's all kinds of things from them interacting, seeing UFOs,
taking notes during this whole time, or how? Like, did
yeah,
they just
they have
to the
notes,
end
yeah,
of it?
but they just but they don't know. Like, I mean, that doesn't. I mean, if you're completely lose touch with reality, your notes could be.
Well, that's what I'm at. I'm like, is it based on when there's a research based on at the end of the 30 days, then they like start remembering what they remembered for 30, or are they somehow
No, I think they were
alternating and observing each other, and then they're talking, the other one's taking notes. Like, I'm trying to think of how they actually documented the 30 days.
I think you're thinking they could keep it together a little more than they probably could for 30 days of being on massive mushrooms.
I totally don't have a problem with them just ripping mushrooms for 30 days.
Yeah.
I'm just having a problem of how do you document it? Like, look what happened to Tristan in 13 hours.
I mean, that's,
like,
but they
does he have time to take notes of?
No, is the answer.
Careening through the forest?
No is the answer. So, which is why probably Dennis McKenna refers to that he was legally insane during that time.
All right, so he's just referencing back to what he can remember in that 30-day period.
Yeah, well, they probably wrote down some notes during it, too. In between, they remembered they were scientists, in between thinking they were aliens, and like there's probably glimpses of lucidity.
And hieroglyphs and codes, light codes.
Yeah, so and that's, their book is fascinating, Terrence McKenna's book, describing it. And but one of the most fascinating parts of all of that, to me, was that Dennis McKenna, towards the end of the, as they call it, the experiment, the 30 days, they were trying to see if they could use mushrooms to manifest something into reality. And Dennis McKenna, I believe, still, even though he admits he was probably legally insane at that time, he still believes that they might have manifested, I think it was a key or something small, that they actually manifested completely, because I think also they had 2 chicks with them at some point. I'm not sure if those are,
you can't just skip over that part.
This was the 60s, Freddie. Everything was science was doing mushrooms for 30 days with some hippie chicks.
This reminds me, I did research just like this in Panama City over spring breaks over many years.
Did you take notes?
No, but now that you think about it, I don't really have to. I just have to remember my studies.
Yeah, write it down. Write it down. See what the result is.
There was chicks. There was altered reality. There was manifestations of all sorts of kinds of things.
Write it down.
Just wait for my memoirs.
Yeah. Well, there's something definitely interesting going on with mushrooms that is fascinating. Yeah, but probably with everything. Like the catch is, like, the further you go into the spirit world to retrieve the knowledge, the less you can bring it back, the less you can relate it back.
Or the less the place you're bringing it back to is real.
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah. Who knows?
Maybe that's the real place you're going
Yeah,
to, and you keep
could be.
you're slipping out of the fake place.
It would be interesting to hear more of Tristan's stories. I would love to hear his, I think he mentioned midget wrestling and being bit by a cobra, which hope to God he calls in the cobra biting story. Or maybe he'll end up winning and we can really dive in to Tristan's.
Get a bunch of those stories.
Yeah. Mushrooms was originally also, I believe it was the CIA, of course, was looking into it as they believe it's an actual, there's something in the chemical that psilocybin was originally named something for indicating telepathy, that they think it has the ability to facilitate speaking between minds.
Yeah, well, that would be...
Which would make sense. If everything is consciousness, then you're just tapping back into the source.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Taking a shortcut.
Yeah,
and,
that makes sense.
Yeah. And not to kill a story, some people like Dennis, it makes them forget to put on pants.
Pants are sometimes important.
Yeah, can be. If this reality is real. So that was an awesome story to get started with. And now, as Monty Python used to say, for something completely different, we're going to switch gears to serial killers.
Fine.
And have you ever heard about the Smiley face killers?
I have. I have.
All right, I'm going to read real quick for anybody that hasn't, or maybe is like out of the United States that has not heard about the theory. From Wikipedia, if you look it up, the Smiley face murder theory is a theory advanced by retired New York City detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, as well as Dr. Lee Gilbertson, a criminal justice professor and gang expert at St. Cloud State University, that alleges that the deaths of over 45 young men that were found dead in bodies of water across 11 different Midwestern American states from the late 90s to at least the 2010s. Some people believe it's actually still going on, that they did not actually drown as indicated by local law enforcement, but were victims of one or multiple serial killers working together. And as recently as 2017, Gannon and Duarte were examining evidence going back to the late 90s that they believe connects these deaths. And there's several themes that are all related amongst the deaths. They're all college-age people. They're white young males that have been out drinking, and then they end up being found dead in a body of water. With the most interesting aspect of it is they are the decomposition of them being in the water, which is like an evidence-based thing. You can actually work out how long a body has been in the water based on temperature and water exposure, all that stuff. And so the rate of decomposition should at least roughly match. And in a lot of these cases, it's wildly off. Like that the body will show up, they'll go missing in a certain area. They'll search the area, nobody. Then like a month later, the body will show up. And the decomposition is not that the body has been in the water for a month, that it was just dumped there.
It was somewhere.
And then the smiley face aspect comes from that there are oftentimes people find graffiti of smiley faces or that kind of thing somewhere near the location where the person goes missing. So this is a woman who wants to remain anonymous that thinks she may have at one time, long time ago, ran in to the people who might be involved in these murders. So this is from Anonymous in Wisconsin, and calling in her insight about the smiley face killers potentially.
Hey guys, love the show. You had mentioned serial killers in a couple of episodes back, and I thought I would call this story in just to basically kind of add to that theme. I'm not positive if it involved serial killers, but I've sort of convinced myself it did. And I'd like to remain anonymous. This is a story about when I was waitressing in a town called La Crosse, Wisconsin, back around 2001. And if you don't know anything about La Crosse, Wisconsin, there was a number of weird deaths that happened to mostly young men during the 90s and through the 2010s, that they would be found dead in the Mississippi River that runs right next to La Crosse, Wisconsin. La Crosse is a college town. There's like a big nightlife scene downtown where I waitressed at in the afternoons at a diner, and the young men that would end up dead would always be found in the Mississippi River. And if you're not familiar with it, there's a whole theory about these young men in La Crosse that ended up dead, along with, I think, around 40 others across the Midwest and various states and cities that also ended up dead, that they're all the work of a serial killer or a team of serial killers that have been operating in the Midwest for like the past 2 to 3 decades, and are called the smiley face killers because there's typically a smiley face somewhere close to the body when it's found, like drawn on a tree or, on a park bench or something, graffiti somewhere. Of course, there's a lot of people that don't believe all of these killings are related and that the smiley face killer thing is more of a myth that's developed. But I think I might have had an interaction with someone involved in the killings. So my story is that one afternoon in downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, towards the end of winter, like February 2001, it was a big lunch rush, and I was working all of my tables like normal. There were 2 kind of gruff-looking gentlemen that put off a very strange vibe. Of course, being over 20 years ago now, I don't remember exactly what they looked like, but I do remember noticing that they had tattoo sleeves on their arms, it looked like, and even some tattoos running up their necks, and maybe even one guy had one on his face, but they also had on hoodies with the hoods up covering their faces to a great extent, and which wasn't completely out of the ordinary because it was February in Wisconsin, but at the same time, like, we obviously had the heat on in the restaurant, and they also hunched over towards each other and whispered a lot as they were eating, and they gave off a vibe, definitely, that they didn't want to be observed or listened to, and whenever I came up to the table, they would definitely blatantly stop talking about whatever they had just been talking about. And one of the gentlemen, I would say one of the guys was like older, middle-aged. The other guy was much younger, like college age. And the college age kid would have a notebook out that he was scribbling in a lot as they ate. Anyway, what happens is while they're there, there's like a grease fire that breaks out briefly in the kitchen. Nothing serious at all, but if you've ever been around the kitchen and like a quick grease fire can put off a lot of smoke, and that smoke actually set off the fire alarm and sprinklers. And so it very quickly, the packed restaurant turned into kind of a chaotic scene with people not knowing what was going on, but rushing out of the restaurant to stand on the sidewalk. And the sprinklers were quickly shut off, the alarm was quickly shut off, but the 2 gentlemen had gotten up quickly and ran out as the crowd had, and I noticed they left the notebook that they had been scribbling in on the table. The 2 guys never came back into the restaurant once we opened it back up, probably just to skip out on the bill. And so I kept the notebook and my apron for a couple of days, thinking that I'd look at it and maybe could find their identity to, track them down somehow because I didn't want to pay for the $40 that their lunch should come to, which my manager was going to make me do for letting them get out of the restaurant without paying. So anyway, eventually I look in the notebook, and to me at the time, the information didn't really mean anything. There were just named, like the names of months, like, different months, January, February, whatever. And then there would be a list of months and below the name of different cities. And so like La Crosse, Wisconsin, I distinctly later on started to match up that those months were when dead bodies were found. And next to the months that I believe the dead bodies were found, they already had a smiley face. And the reason why I think this is even beyond just somebody being interested in the killings is because I distinctly remember that one of the months, the next one in the list for La Crosse that didn't have a smiley face next to it was March, and March of that year, 2001. And then there was no smiley face in the notebook, and then a month later in March, another dead body was found that fit the profile of those killings. And so I actually believe these two guys were somehow involved and were orchestrating, or part of whatever group was orchestrating this. And I don't remember much more because I threw the notebook out once I gave up of using it to find their identity to get the $40 for the lunch back. And so I threw it away, didn't think about it much until that dead body showed up in March. Then I started to put it together and started to think about, although unfortunately I didn't write down the information obviously or anything because I didn't think it was important, but there were many other cities listed like Pittsburgh, St. Louis, all of which had months next to them, some with smiley faces, some without smiley faces yet. And then there was some kind of obscure astrology type wording and drawings in the margins. Like, I'm not really into astrology, but it seemed like there was some timing to astrology that they might have been using. Anyway, it's a fascinating subject. I don't know if it's real or not. I don't know if I was waiting on the smiley face killers or if they are still out there, or maybe this is all just a myth, but I think it's really fascinating, and I obviously would prefer to stay anonymous, and luckily I don't live in La Crosse, Wisconsin, or any of the hotbeds for it anymore. And thanks a lot. I really like what you're doing with the show, and best of luck with it. I am a huge fan. Thank you.
So what do you think, Freddie? What's your verdict on the smiley face killers? Who are they?
Okay, so when did it start?
Like,
who's the first smiley face?
Yeah, I think like in the early 1990s.
If I was a serial killer and I hadn't yet to, get into that endeavor, and I had seen something maybe on the TV where there was one or two, I would assume that the rest of them would be copycats, and you would just be like, I'm going to just join this club.
Yeah.
And, then the other serial killers around the country are like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Look at, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And, so I don't think it's an organized thing. I think it's kind of organic, just trend.
If you're into serial killing.
If you're into serial killing.
Sort of like bootcut jeans or something. Like you see somebody just sees somebody doing it and thinks that's cool. I'm going to wear those jeans.
Yeah, it's like a TikTok trend, but for serial killers.
Yeah.
So you're telling me I can know what's the rules? We just got to pick out a well-off kind of douchey guy that's doing well in some sort of university and grab him, keep him for a couple months, and then throw him in some water and throw down. Yeah, we get with that. And because I'm trying to think of the other version of it where it's an orchestrated
that it
endeavor.
Seems like it would be very difficult to orchestrate
and what's
serial
the
killing
purpose?
over.
I don't see the end game or the purpose for it to be an organized thing.
Well,
like
the only thing that I would say counter to that is, do you remember the Son of Sam documentary and that guy that wrote the book? I've forgotten what Maury something.
It's funny because when I heard that Duarte guy, I swear I thought I heard his name before. Was he the detective?
He wasn't that detective. I think because the Son of Sam detective is dead now, and I think his name was Maury something that wrote the book. But it is like his conclusion, which if you watch that documentary, and there's always the problem of when you're getting your information just from one source, it can sound like airtight. But like at least the way he presented it, or in that documentary, at the end of that was like, holy shit, there is a organized group of serial killers.
I'm not saying that there aren't organized satanic ritual abuse organizations. That's totally for sure. I don't see this version of it being advantageous to them in any way. I can't.
Well, it could be she mentioned there's something about astrology in the Notebook. Maybe it has to do with sacrificing to keep. Maybe it's maybe they're all like, if you check into it, they're all interns for Hillary.
Well, but I get the sacrifice part. I get that part, and I get the ritual dates and stuff like that. The labeling it and the smiley face for the public part, I'm having a hard time stretching.
Well, that was the detectives that called it the smiley face killers, because they started to know the smiley face, notice the smiley faces. Yeah. So
I just trying to see what's the play. Usually when you if you're going to do a fear campaign like that, it's to move the herd or the cattle into one direction or to give up some sort of right or something like that. But I don't see the end play with it.
My assumption, or not assumption, but where I kind of fall on it, and there's a awesome YouTube channel called the Lore Lodge that has done some amazing analysis of not only the missing 411 cases, but this. And I love them because they're very open to any idea, but then they're very rigorous on trying to just stick to the evidence they have to base their conclusion off of. And the main guy, he came to the conclusion, I believe, most recently that where this woman's call is from, La Crosse, Wisconsin, was one of the hotbeds, as well as some other places. But he kind of looked at the cases and thought that probably about half of them right away you could throw out as being actual drownings. That once you delve into the actual facts about it, there's no evidence that it was foul play.
Right.
But out of those, when you look at any city in a cluster, there are I don't know how many he eventually decided, but in La Crosse came up with the conclusion that there probably was somebody, at least for a while, that was drugging drunk dudes out at the bar, slipping them GHB and killing them for purposes that but it was probably just a couple of local serial killers. And even there's a lot of evidence that a chick was involved that would lure the guys, and then they would torture them and kill them for whatever reason. But then what happens is you might have 2 or 3 serial killers that are independently working around the country. But then with all these unsolved cases, then sort of with the missing 411 thing, they start to lump them together and start to look for the connecting stuff rather than looking for the stuff that rules them out. And then the myth kind of forms around it.
It's the how many red cars did you see?
Yeah, so it's kind of I think the reality is there's probably been a serial killer at some point that has killed. If you're saying there's 50 victims, maybe 20 of them have been done by a couple of different serial killers working independently, but then it's just all kind of morphing into a mythological story that is self-fulfilling.
I find it lacking. I wish there was more cool stuff, like a shrine of some kind with like a goat's head or some sort of,
Well, maybe
like
we'll get there.
cipher to
Maybe you will get there, Freddie. Maybe some people think it's
This has
still
been going
on
on for like 20 years
Yeah,
now.
some people think it's going there right now. I think in Pittsburgh, there's been recently a few missing people that like fit all the attributes of. So it could be like they're just
trying
passing.
to get in.
They're
They're just trying to get in on it.
They could be passing down the smiley face. And me, just the way I think of that reality works is there's probably a very professional, well-organized group of serial killers that worked very hard to orchestrate.
So we should not make them mad.
No, but they're just
downgrading.
they're very pissed that the smiley face thing got labeled with it.
Oh.
Somehow that was like an accident. They had a whole different name thought up. They had a whole different purpose, and now somehow we've just derailed it with everybody.
Second. You did another smiley face?
Yeah.
We were supposed to move on to
just,
this symbol.
Yeah, or it was just bad luck that there happened to be a graffiti.
Wait, all three of you did smiley?
Yeah.
No.
Everybody's
There's
missing
a whole message.
We were writing poems but nobody sees the poem because everybody's.
Damn it! Now we've got to stick with this. Yeah. This totally ruins the whole thing.
That's the way I think reality works. So there's a bunch of now over the hill serial killers that are trying to save their message.
I think they should just scrap the whole thing, come up with a new, better idea, just wash the whole thing away and do something different because this is played out.
Yeah, it's been going on it's getting a little long in the tooth. From the 90s to now.
Oh, did he disappear for a month?
Yeah.
And then he ended up in the water again? Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, I think you're right. They do need to move on.
They need to
revamp. They need to pivot.
Yeah. Bring something, exciting to this. If this was a movie script, I'd pass.
Yeah. You've got very high standards.
Sorry.
Well, now, for something completely different, we are going to move on to a woman named Barbara that had a very interesting experience, and not supernatural or anything, but just have you ever been in a scenario, Freddie, where a dangerous animal surprised you?
That's
like you can think of. I've got one story that I'll tell after Barbara's call.
A dangerous animal surprised me. I love all the animals. I'm like going towards the animals. I don't go away from the animals. So I can't say that I've ever been like jumped by an animal somewhere that I wasn't actively trying to.
Well, no matter how much
hug her.
Yeah. Well, no matter how much you virtue signal to the animals right now, you realize that some of them could harm you at some point.
It's my reality, Jim. The way I manifest it, I can pet all the animals.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see if that's the way your life plays out. And here is Barbara from India calling in her snake encounter.
This is the story about an experience I had in India. I was living in an old house in India, in the south of India, and I was just sitting on my bed. I was getting ready to start my meditation. And I was sitting on top of my bed, and I just glanced down at the rug on the floor, and I saw this black snake wriggling on the floor of the carpet in my room. And suddenly my mind just snapped awake, and I just thought to myself, oh no, there's a snake on the floor. And I thought, if I let that snake escape, I'll have to move out of my house because it'll just hide in a corner of the house and I'll never be able to find it again. And what I did is that I ripped the blanket off my bed immediately, and I threw the blanket on top of the snake. And I picked up the snake in the blanket, and I opened the door, and I tossed the blanket with the snake out of the door. I really don't know how I managed to do that, but it all happened so quickly. My mind just snapped awake, and I picked up that snake and threw it out the door. And then I just closed the door. And I to this day, I don't know how I managed to do that in a split second, but it was the only way I could save the house. and enable myself to still continue to live there. And that's the story. One of a very scary moment in my life, but a moment that I reacted very quickly and very with great surety. That's it.
Now that would be if you especially were scared of snakes.
Yeah.
Like waking up or finding a snake.
She was meditating, and then it just
Well, I think she said she was about to meditate.
Oh, she was about to
or
meditate,
something.
and then she saw it, and then jumped into action. You have like
Were
a
you
whole...
going to go with it if she was meditating, she manifested the snake?
No, I was trying to judge her state of mind. Like, you say she just woke up, or if she was asleep, or if she was meditating, or,
Yeah.
But I was just trying to put myself in her shoes as far as how, to mentally work through this issue that's just happened. But it is kind of funny because your brain, like, it has a default where you're just along for the ride.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, there's
definitely a
car accident or
instinct. Yeah.
time slows down and you just do, and you're just like, what am I doing? Like, you're just a passenger.
Yeah.
You're just like, this is cool.
Have you ever seen the, speaking of car wrecks, the cases of, and I think it's happened mainly to women, mothers,
that super strength?
Super strength. And car wrecks to get like where they've had cases of women like literally like throwing a car off of a child or something. So it's just like, it's crazy how much, you think like, wow, if that was accessed then
adrenaline
there's
is
some
a
way to
thing.
access that anytime you want.
Yeah,
if you
it's
had
probably
mastery.
there. It's just you have the right amount of emotion attached to it, which is 100 times what you normally go through life
the
with.
Focus.
The focus and the emotion, like the want.
Yep.
And then when you get to that level of want, you can manifest or move.
Yeah.
You make things happen.
Yeah, the focus and sincerity then creates the ability to do it.
Yeah, which is what was this caller's name? Did she have a name?
Barbara.
Barbara. That's what Barbara did with the snake. She just really wanted it out and went into snapped into action, jumped across the room, assessed the situation as she was flying through the air, and grabbed a hold of the blanket, tossed it before she landed, and did a barrel roll in my head. At the same time as opening the door, and then slung around and hurled it out onto the lawn.
What if this is the same story, basically, that Tristan would tell about the cobra, except his is just like, yeah, dude, I was sitting there high as shit, and that cobra just kept on going and just bit me right in the face.
Well, what if he was out on his front lawn sunning himself, and a cobra was thrown on him?
Oh, by Barbara?
With a blanket.
Wow, that would be fascinating. If he happened to be in India when he was bit by the cobra?
Yeah. He had just gotten to India that day, and he was... he was just trying to sit down on his luggage and catch a couple Z's.
Took off his monk robe to get some sun.
Yeah, and a blanket flies through the air
a cobra
with
on
an
him.
angry cobra.
Yeah. God, that would be amazing. That would be the first case of where you'd have to have two people on the show at the same time to interview.
Yeah. I'm pretty much just going to lock that in for Tristan's Cobra story. So now we just need the other one.
Yeah, the midget.
Yes.
So this story of Barbara's reminded me, and I'll try and tell this quick because this was like a long event that had multiple stories actually involved in it. But as far as the part of being surprised by a potentially dangerous animal, on one of the backcountry trips I went on, it was me, my brother, his girlfriend, and their dog. And we were hiking the Pacific Crest Trail I think we were out there for like 5 days. And this is like the nearest road was 40 miles away. Once we were out, like we were out in the middle of nowhere, like where couldn't even get phone signal. Like it was just like, and so we're hiking up and down mountains, have full packs on, like 60-pound packs, day after day. we're using a map that we don't realize is outdated by several years. And with the changes in weather and washing trails and stuff, basically we get lost towards the end of it. And we're literally lost out in the middle of nowhere in the woods in Northern California for over a day. We were just trying to find, and that's a whole nother story, how we found our way out and everything. But we were running low on food. I actually ate dog food the last day.
Oh.
But that, again, is all part of the longer story. But the part about the animal surprising is, so we figure out our way to get out of the woods, and we make it back. And so we're driving out of where we were hiking to the nearest town is not even a town. It's like the small place that's basically just set up to give people that are about to go on the Pacific Crest Trail somewhere to sleep in a cabin and stuff. And like, so there's minimal stuff there. There's cabins and plumbing and stuff and like one central kind of store, but it's not really a big town. And, so we rent a room there and we're like, oh, thank God we made it back to civilization. We're all pissed at each other because we've been arguing about shit trying to save our lives. We're starving, basically. This is our first like sigh of relief that we're not going to die. And they had like a little restaurant there where we ate a cheeseburger, had a couple beers. Me and my brother are kind of making up and relaxing after all our tense exchanges of late and all this stuff. So we go into the cabin and we've got 2 rooms, but 1 kitchen and 1 bathroom. And we all pass out very early, completely exhausted. I wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. And I go to the bathroom and I swear to God, I go to the sink. And there is moonlight is shining on the sink. And right as I'm about to stick my hands in to wash my hands, I notice there is a like 3-4 inch black scorpion just sitting there, like right under the faucet, like right where I was about to stick my hands. And I was like, holy fuck. And like, wake the hell up. I'm like, oh my God. Like, that's a giant freaking scorpion that like would have stung me if I stuck my hands there. And I was so exhausted. And I was thinking like, what can I do? I'm not going to battle a scorpion right now. It's like 3 a.m. I'm exhausted. And so I decide he was right on over the drain pipe. Yeah. And so I get a coffee mug from the kitchen and go and put it over the scorpion and the drain pipe. And I just quickly write a note that says, "Scorpion, don't lift up," or something like that on the coffee mug, and go back to sleep. And then when I woke up the next day, because me and my brother and his girlfriend had been so tense towards the end of the trip and so frustrated with each other and everything, like I wake up and I think, they're going to think that I just stuck a scorpion in a coffee mug, like trying to kill him. Yeah, like trying to kill him. And
I got your scorpion message.
Yeah, so it sort of was like that. And then because somehow I think the note blew off or something. So like, I can't remember exactly, but there was a whole thing, of if I tried to kill them with a scorpion or... But then the funniest part of the whole story, though, is the next morning I checked with the guy that owned the camp and the store and everything in the restaurant. Yeah. And I was like, there's a freaking scorpion in that room. And the old guy was just like, he's like, well, what color is it? What does it look like? And he's like, those are the nice scorpions. They won't hurt you. Yeah. And so he didn't, there was a different color scorpion that would have killed you. But that one wasn't the one in the sink.
Right. That was just annoying sting.
Yeah. So, but for that 3 a.m. moment, like I just briefly thought, it was like the third act in a movie, the last twist where you think the serial killer's dead and then he pops up and tries to kill you again.
You made it out of the woods.
Yeah. And I was just like,
civilization,
safe
and then get just jabbed by a scorpion and die.
Yep.
I like the idea of leaving venomous, pissed off animals when you have a squabble.
Yeah.
With your brother.
Well, I didn't want to
Just
continued argument, like where the hell would I have found the scorpion to try and kill them with?
Laundry and get it in the dryer, and there's just a rabid wombat, and it's like, oh, he's still pissed.
Isn't that the way that like they try to kill James Bond every few movies? It's like they put a scorpion or a snake in his bed. Yeah. So, well, yeah, thank you very much, Barbara, for calling that great story in. And our final story is coming up, Freddie. And this, for something completely different, is from, I believe you pronounce his name, Zania. And he is a 16-year-old that has been growing up in the war zone in Ukraine. And it's pretty fascinating to me to hear him talking about it, because at times, like, I think we get way too complacent, especially if you haven't been traveling recently, that you can sort of start to think that whatever location you are in, everybody else is experiencing that reality and all the day-to-day things that you go through. And hearing Zania talk about it is just kind of a reminder that even though everybody's can be on the same social media, or, it's the same time period in history and everything, people are having wildly different experiences. There's somebody that we could be sitting comfortably in the United States. Other people are in war zones or in Haiti, or is Barbara having to deal with a snake in India. There's a vast array of things out there that could be challenging other people, that it's probably good to just kind of remind ourselves about and want to hear other people's perspectives of the context that they have going on in their lives. And so here is Zania, who is talking about the Ukraine and what's been going on for the past couple of years there.
Hey, what's up? So my name is Zania Lorenko. I'm from Ukraine, and this is my story. And I think I should start it from February 24, 2022, the day when the war in Ukraine started. And a really special day in all the worst ways. But I was 14 at the time. It's crazy to think that it's been 2 years. And then at this point, it's like completely used to this whole worst. Yeah, I did anything. Yeah. Routine stuff. But back then, it was a total shock. I was like, whoa, what the hell is happening? This is scary. Like, a rocket hit, and it just realized the weight of what was happening, the danger that everybody was in, was really messing with my head. And I really didn't understand the weight of everything that was happening. I didn't fully understand it, because I was a dumb 14-year-old kid. But, I was trying, and I was going through a lot of, kind of growing up, figuring out stuff, and that was messing with my head too, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, completely wasting time, completely doing freaking nothing, and being the dumbest 14-year-old you've ever met. I really don't know. It was terrible. It was completely stupid. Never do anything like that again. Don't want to specify. But we had to move to Poland for 4 months. We lived with our friends. Me, my mom, and my sister. Dad had to stay home because, man can't leave the country because of mobilization, laws, all that stuff. So yeah, we had to move to Poland for 4 months. We lived with our friends, and it was okay, but kind of, I wouldn't say it was difficult. I was just being a little bitch and just complaining and freaking, how do I say it? Complaining and feeling sorry for myself. Something that I would could never do now. You know, I used to be a really weak person, I guess. So yeah, that was 2 months in Poland. They just kind of went by. I really wasn't doing a lot of stuff. I was basically just wasting time. And yeah, then we returned home, returned to Ukraine, and winter 2022, winter 2023, and bam, blackouts. Let's go. Awesome. No electricity for days, hours, for some people even weeks. I mean, we had it like really good because we have a generator. But for many people, it was absolutely terrible. Like, cold, winter, no electricity, no, it's cold, it's dark, it sucks. I feel like, the whole country was just, like so down. Like, it sucked. Yeah, that was winter. And it got even worse for me. I was doing even more useless shit. Sorry for the word, but that's no idea what else to call this stuff. I mean, I was smoking, I was drinking. I would never do that now. Like, absolutely never. I didn't know what I was thinking. I was wasting time. I was, just the dumbest teenager you've ever seen. Just freaking stupid. And yeah, that's how it works for me. Fast forward a couple months, I decided to change everything. I was like, what the hell am I doing? If I want to make it in this world, if I want to be somebody in this world, and if I want to achieve something, and if I want to create a life for myself that I would enjoy, that I would be proud of, I have to stop this stuff. I have to get back on track, and I have to freaking get disciplined, and I have to turn everything around. Because I used to be really lazy. I used to, waste time, do nothing, procrastinate, freaking spend hours on my phone every day, everything bad that you can imagine. I was probably doing it. And I decided to change it. It was a really radical decision. I was like, just do it. I gotta get back in shape because when I was 13, I was really in shape. I was doing parkour. I learned how to do a backflip. I had a parkour channel on YouTube. I had like 300 subscribers, but it was an achievement. I was making money. I had like a freelance job I was editing videos for, for dance studio when I was 13. I was shooting videos for them. I was working. I was doing stuff. I was doing pretty good for a 13-year-old. But, then stuff started going down and, kind of fell off the grind. I completely fell off the grind. But then I was like, at the end of 15, probably, that was late 2023. I was like, no, when I have to stop doing this. I have to get back on track, and I have to get back in shape. I have to become disciplined. I have to become a strong person. I need to stop being a freaking little bitch. Sorry, but it is what it is. I have to stop doing this. Because right now, I don't like what I'm doing. I completely, I had no self-esteem. Yeah, I had no self-confidence. I was doing nothing, and I was making no progress in life. But I decided to shout. And basically, what I did, I get back, I started working out a lot. The gym and weights and running and acrobatics, parkour and boxing, Muay Thai. I want to start Taekwondo. Probably this month I'll start. I really want to go to a Taekwondo gym and learn Taekwondo. And yeah, just all kinds of sports. I got back into them. In these couple of months, I like to think that I get in a pretty good shape. I ran actually 10K race. It's like there literally was 1,000 people there. Like, no joke, 1,000 people. And I get number 13 in the 18 to 22 category, because they don't have a 15 to 17 category. They just have 18 to 22, and they put me there. And I'm number 13. I finished number 13, which I'm kind of proud of. And a couple of weeks ago, I released my debut single. Today, actually. My new single is coming out. I started a podcast, started the social media challenge, starting at business right now. I'm doing my thing a little bit with a business, designing merch. Right now, this is literally what I'm doing today. Yeah. What else? Getting a driver's license, finishing school. Yeah. It's a lot. There's a lot going on right now. And, I have a lot of new friends out there, doing a lot of cool stuff, meeting a lot of new people, just making, doing better than I ever had. And I did this, I changed everything in just a couple months. So, just moral of the story is, you can do anything if you change your mind and make the radical decision to make a change and commit to it. That's what I did. That's what I hope you will do.
So thank you, Xenia, for calling that in. The first thing that strikes me, Freddie, is that 16 in Ukraine is like 28 in Tampa.
He's had a whole life already.
I think he might be being a little hard on himself. You're doing good, man.
He's gone through the whole paradigm of 30 and 40-year-olds in a matter of
I know 30-year-olds
12 and 16.
Yeah. I know people he could come over here and probably run some businesses. There's people in their mid-30s that are still well below
him.
He just
hit the fast forward button and it's I'm really messing up here. I need to change some things. We're like, man, you're 13. Wow. But he did.
Yeah, he's winning.
Which is way better than a lot of people around here.
Yeah.
They still talk about it for 10 years.
Oh,
yeah.
That's what I mean. He's winning races and this is all during blackout and bomb sitting and there's people that he could just probably come over here and just a few 35-year-old men just beat the shit out of them and take their job. Just say, hey, bitch, Xenia's here.
The self-awareness is it's epic.
Yeah.
I mean, the introspection that as he sat down at 14, I'm like, is this really where I want to be doing? I applaud.
That seems so incredibly young to be, that...
This was gotta be, you have to be 35. There's... Unless there's something else in the water over there. Because
that's why I think it's
13-year-olds here just say "brah" a lot.
Yeah.
That's all they do.
Yeah.
That's it.
If they say anything, because they're
in Ohio Riz.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other sayings that don't really make a lot of sense now. But they don't. He is decades ahead of them.
Freddie, this is going to make me segue into something else, your statement there, that I did want to bring up just because I think it's fascinating. And this has nothing to do with Xenia's call, unfortunately. But so I suspect one of the things that's going on with internet in general and just over the way things are evolving over the past few decades is that communication is breaking down more and more, like real communication between people. And which is ironic because you would think there'd be more there's more noise, but less substance.
So
being
we're in
exchanged.
reverse.
Yeah. But the study that I heard about just a couple of days ago confirmed to me of this theory that, so what they did was they were just curious of how accurate people's interpretations were of emojis. And think about this, because like we've gone from writing letters to that were long and detailed and required very specific, crafted way of communication to get your exact point across, to then we simplified that to emails that were quicker, less substance. Then we went to texts, which are less substance. Now, apparently with Gen Z, it's a sign that you're an old person if you use capitalization or any punctuation in your text, which is solely there to help communicate.
Yeah. So
and then more and more, instead of using words, people are using emojis, which are basically hieroglyphs.
That's where I said we're going back to hieroglyphics.
Yeah, but the funny thing about this study, because I knew it wasn't just me, even though like we're definitely older than the main people now that are texting emojis all the time, but still, like I always wonder, do people really understand each other when they're, and they did a study of like taking all the emojis and taking all different kinds of people and trying to take the person telling them what they thought the emoji meant, and nobody thinks the emojis mean the same things.
Yeah.
They're just all texting funny pictures back and forth to each other that they think are communicating a point, but the person receiving it is reading something completely different.
Especially if you're generations apart.
Yeah.
Like the emojis that we might use between us have totally different meanings for somebody.
But even from the generational thing is definite.
Yeah.
Like, but then even when you get into the generation, it's like there's only
completely
specific.
Subjective.
Yeah. It's like there's really only like 4 people in a group who know what the fuck they're talking about texting. And their way of communicating is completely different from the group next to them. It's just all evolving this, where everything gets into more and more of a microcosm sort of echo chamber. So there's less true communication, bunch of noise, things going off all around you, but there's only like 2 people that know what the hell you're saying that are saying things that you can understand.
You're going to have to click on that telepathy gene at some point here.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be speaking different languages.
Maybe that's what AI, once it completes its gestation, and takes
Jim,
control.
That my phone just updated this morning, and you could, you being somebody else, could call me in Spanish, and I could just be like, "Hey, phone, translate that."
Oh, that's already there? I knew that was coming.
Oh, it's here. He came here today.
Wait, what kind of phone have you got?
An Android.
Oh, okay, I don't think I've got a
Samsung.
Yeah.
They no, I can talk in English and you could hear me in Spanish.
Wow.
Live.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I knew that was coming, but I didn't. Yeah,
yep.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Now what you can do is send a bunch of crazy pictures, emojis to those people in Spanish, and then they'll be confused also.
Yes. That is, wow. Now I have something to do.
You've got the whole world.
I'm going to send Spanish emojis to everyone.
Did not communicate effectively with. Did you also see the AI thing with her? Which we've talked about before, the dating. They actually, you remember the movie Her with Joaquin
I remember
Phoenix?
the movie.
Yeah, well, OpenAI apparently actually, and it's startling how well this thing interacts now that they were showing. But it turned out they actually ripped off Scarlett Johansson's voice.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, so she's suing them now. But so they're changing the voice so it doesn't sound exactly like the computer in Her. but which we're all sad about because we all wanted to fall in love with Scarlett Johansson's voice. But there'll be other voices. But but it's here. The whole
There's a bunch of TikTok girls that are AI.
Oh yeah, that's all.
You would know. I mean, you really, really, really have to look hard to find the AI.
Because they can do the face swap thing now too, where it's like they can take a video of a girl like in motion and then transpose the face over it. Where it's super hard.
But
So I think all younger guys are done. Like we can write them off. They're only going to be in love with imaginary AI women.
It's
from here on out.
Tough.
But what I think is even more interesting that nobody's talking about that, because I think everybody just realizes that generations of teenage boys now will be lost into AI porn and girlfriends. But what I think is people aren't even thinking about is it's also going to happen to young women that not for the same reasons. But there was also a story about women starting to rely on more and more. I think it was an AI man named Dan or something that like would basically give them the attention and listen to them and respond supportively. That more and more women are using that. So it's basically like women are going to find a way. There's going to be a company that gets women addicted to the male version of the dating. So it's just basically, but it's going to be for what they're primarily missing. But it's going to be so they're not going to talk to the young guys either, because they're just going to be like, well, I can go out and get laid anytime I want. But what I really want is this communication that only the AI Dan can give me, because no teenage kid or young adult can will listen to me and give me the attention that he will and understanding.
We're getting into very interesting territory here.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, at least we got to go. At least we got to go on spring break while it was a thing.
Yeah, while it was real people.
Yeah, without cell phones and.
Yeah, that's amazing. That was like a golden time.
So much fun.
Yeah,
all the people talking and all you had to do is just enjoy having a party and dancing and
the great stories.
Yeah. The morning afters were the best. You'd wake up and find out what went down the night before.
Yeah.
I feel sad for this next generation.
Yep. Nope. Entirely different until at least the giant solar flare hits and we get the reset.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, at some point, if they haven't replaced the sun, Jim, because there's a lot of content on there being a fake sun.
All right. That's a good note to end on. Cliffhanger.
Yeah. Cliffhanger.
All right. With that, we will wrap it up. And one thing I want to encourage anyone to do out there, everybody, even if it's not you, you know a friend of yours that's got great stories. You know somebody that you can think of right now that you'd just be like, if I want to hear an entertaining story, that person's going to have it. Send the show to them and say, hey, you should call in because you could win $250. So do that for us because it helps get the word out on the show, but then it's going to just make the content even that much better, the crazier and more interesting stories we can get. So please share the show. And if you get a chance, also give us a 5-star rating on whatever podcast player you listen to. And keep in mind the story voting for this month will be open on the website June 1st through the 7th. So go to yourbesttruestory.com to vote for your best story from this month. And I don't know, I've kind of got my fingers crossed right now that Tristan's going to win and we're going to get to hear that cobra biting story.
I want the midget story. I already solved the cobra biting story.
Oh, that would be amazing.
We got to delve into the midget story. And I'm sure he's got a couple that he doesn't want to tell us, but we'll coax him into it.
Yep. That might be might have to have a couple beers for that interview if Tristan wins.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for listening tell somebody about the show, and tune in a couple of weeks with the next episode where we will probably announce the winner from this month. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.
Please be aware that Your Best True Story podcast cannot attest to the validity of any story contained within. Additionally, all podcast hosts have failed numerous IQ tests and been legally deemed idiots by the judicial branch of the state of Florida. Therefore, please seek second opinions from licensed attorneys, doctors, CPAs, and/or ventriloquists prior to leaving your job to hunt Bigfoot, dragging a stake through your sleeping spouse's heart due to vampiric suspicion, snipping, slicing, dicing, or gargling any substance, attempting to drive your automobile off of the flat earth, or attempting to overthrow any government over suspicion that they are lizard aliens. The Your Best True Story podcast does not purport to offer legal, financial, or gynecological advice. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Please wear your seatbelt at all times and keep your hands inside your own compartment. If there is a sudden loss of pressure, you do have our permission to scream. The Your Best True Story podcast takes no responsibility for divorce, bankruptcy, possession by an ancient demonic entity, or brain herpes. For everything else, we still take no responsibility, but we do feel very bad about it.
You got a crazy-ass true story to tell. It could be funny, or thrilling, or creepy, as hell. And when you speak, surely none will make a sound. And the world's going breathless when your true story comes around. Oh, hear the crazy bullshit flying. Just one more maybe true story before we're dying. Yet be warned, surely not all stories will be treated the same. So don't blame us if your tale about Grandma's cookies is lame. The only way to ensure you could possibly win a buck is to make sure that story of yours don't suck. So instead of yawns, go ahead and tell us how that Bigfoot or werewolf drowned, and then hear the world go breathless when your true story comes around. You'll hear the crazy bullshit flying. Just one more maybe true story before we're dying. Yet be warned, surely not all stories will be treated the same. So don't blame us if your tale about your grandma's cookies is lame.